On today's Rockets Fuel podcast, I'll be breaking down three reasons why the Houston Rockets were able to come away with a 108 to 102 victory over their defending Western Conference champion, the Dallas Mavericks. The Rockets got off to a huge lead before they were able to hold on in the fourth quarter. And I'll be breaking down the three reasons why I believe that they were able to come away with a victory. And of course, I think you already know one, Mr. Jalen Green. So definitely stick around and let's get to it. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega cash and pick five games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here.
Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
We are here to Fuel Rockets. This is Rocket Fuel Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Lashard Binkley. We are presented by the Believe Network and sponsored by Bet Online. And on today's show, we'll be breaking down why the Houston Rockets were able to come away with a 108-102 victory over the Dallas Mavericks. We'll be giving you the three reasons why they were able to get their first victory over a Luka Doncic team since 2021. They've beaten the Mavericks since 2021, but in all those games, Luka did not play. So you got to keep in mind players like Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, basically all the players they have drafted in the last several years. None of those players have ever beaten a Luka Doncic-led team. He has pretty much terrorized the Rockets in previous seasons, but the Rockets were able to kind of reverse the curse and come away with a huge victory last night over the Dallas Mavericks. Actually, their second win in the last 8 games versus the Mavericks. So this was a huge road win for the Rockets. Another reason why it was a huge road win for the Rockets, because if you remember last season, the Rockets were a terrible road team, especially at the beginning of the year. They didn't win their first road game until December 8th against the Denver Nuggets last season. So they already have 2 road victories already, and we just got out of the month of October. So that was a huge victory for the Houston Rockets last night. So like I said, I want to give you the 3 reasons why I believe the Houston Rockets were able to come away with that huge victory last night. And let's get right into it. And the first reason is obvious. You have to go with Jalen Green. Jalen Green has been the Houston Rockets' best player all season long. He has led the Rockets in scoring every single game. He did again last night. Even though he struggled a little bit at the beginning of the game, he definitely picked it up in the second half, especially late in the fourth quarter when the Rockets absolutely needed that scoring from Jalen Green. And not just, I'll get to the scoring, but let's talk about something else that a lot of people aren't talking about. He also had 12 rebounds last night. He had his first double-double of the season. That was absolutely huge in last night's game because as the Rockets were able to, again, win the rebounding battle, and Jalen Green was a huge reason for that with his 12 rebounds. And like I said, also with the scoring late in the game, the Rockets were definitely struggling. The Dallas Mavericks were starting to come back, just like they did last year when the Rockets had a 20-point plus lead in Dallas, ended up losing overtime. They were doing the exact same thing. It was the exact same script. You had Kyrie Irving was going off. Luka, who the Rockets had contained for most of the game, he started making shots. The crowd was getting into it. They had cut the lead down to 4 late in the game. And then Jalen Green, after a timeout, was able to get a layup. And then the Mavericks were able to cut the lead down again. With like a minute 12 left, Jalen Green made a huge step back 3 as the Mavericks had went to a 2-3 zone since the Rockets had went small to try to keep them out of the paint. The shot clock was running down. The Rockets really didn't have any type of plays that they seemed they were running. But Jalen Green would ever hit that step back 3 that put the Rockets up 6. And even though Luka did come down and hit another 3, then that's when amenthompson had his biggest shot, probably, definitely one or two of his biggest shot of his career. He had a little turnaround in the lane that eventually was able to give the Rockets enough breathing room. They were able to pull out the victory. But Jalen Green is doing the things that you need from person that you want to be your star level player, because we all know in the NBA a lot of times most games are not going to be blowouts. They're going to be close games, and you're going to need somebody to be that closer. The Rockets had it for a lot of years in James Harden. They haven't had it as much the last few years during the rebuilding year, and then last year we started to see a little bit more of that from players like Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun and even Fred VanVleet at times. But We saw that again last night from Jalen Green. The Rockets were struggling. Mavericks were coming at them fast. And then Jalen Green did not hesitate. He didn't back away from the moment. And he was able to hit those two huge shots, that huge layup at the basket. And then, of course, like I said, the step back three that didn't necessarily ice the game, but it definitely gave the Rockets a lot more breathing room that they had at that moment because, like I said, the Mavericks had all the momentum. And that step back three kind of took the wind out of the Dallas Mavericks arena at the time. So, like I said, Jalen Green has led the Rockets in scoring every single game this season. He has been undoubtedly their best player this season as alperensengun. I know there have been some reports out there that he may be dealing with an injury. I haven't personally heard it. Definitely will try to get more information on that tomorrow out when I go out to the game before the Rockets take on the Warriors. But he has been struggling a little bit. So Jalen Green has taken up some of that slack that we've seen, from players like Şengün that struggle a little bit. Fred VanVleet definitely struggled last night. He finished like 2 for 12 or 3 for 13 last night. So he's been struggling with his shot. So Jalen Green definitely had to pick up a lot of that slack, and he's definitely done that all season long. Definitely the best start to a season for him. As I talked about in the previous podcast, this is his best now 5-game start to his NBA career. He's averaging career high almost across the entire board, including 3-point shooting, including points per game. Like I say, he had the huge 12 rebound game last night, one of the best rebounding games of his career. So Jalen Green is doing exactly what everybody wanted to see from him since he was drafted so high, number 2 a few years ago. And he's starting to do that. And it's not necessarily a surprise to me because I've always said that last year was really his first year to me because when Ime came in, he completely overhauled the entire team. He completely overhauled how the Rockets think, the team morale, how they function, being more professional. So Jalen Green had to learn an entire new offense, an entire new coaching staff. Not to disparage Coach Silas, but let's just be honest. A lot of time, Coach Silas was just kind of just there to just manage the rebuild. It really wasn't to necessarily win games. So now you have a whole different mindset. And Jalen Green had to relearn everything last season under Coach Ime, and now you're starting to really see that take off. And John Lucas, a quote that kind of came out, been coming out the last couple of days, kind of predicted this, that in the 4th year you'll start to see Jalen Green become more of a professional, become the type of player everybody expected him to be. And we're really seeing that through 5 games. And again, just like I said in the last podcast, yes, 4 or 5 games doesn't necessarily make a complete turnaround, but it's definitely an encouraging sign that you have not ever seen this from Jalen Green in 4 or 5 games, and you're seeing that now this season. So Jalen Green was definitely the main reason why the Rockets were able to come away with that victory yesterday. The number 2 reason why the Rockets were able to come away with that victory is actually 2 players. It's amenthompson and Tari Eason, who were just fantastic last night. And it's funny, you look at the box score and you see that neither one of them actually played more than 20 minutes, but it felt like they played 35, 40 minutes, the impact that they had on the game. It wasn't just in the second half. They had it the entire game, but specifically in the second half, again, when the Rockets were struggling and it really seemed like only Jalen Green had anything going, he brought Amen back in, he brought Tari back in, and they were kind of the reason why the Rockets built that big lead to begin with, because of their hustle, because of Tari Eason's outside shooting. Amen was just all over the court. The great defense he played on Luka several times. I actually sent out a tweet earlier in the game where he fought around 2 screens, was able to get back, and was able to force Luka into a tough turnaround that he missed. Another play where they tried to pick him off again. He was able to chase him down from behind. They did call a foul. It wasn't a foul. It was a clear block. But the fact that he was able to get to that shot after having 2 picks set him out on 3-point line tells you how good of a defensive player that amenthompson already is. And like I said, Tari Eason is just one of the smartest players in the entire NBA. He's always constantly moving. He's always constantly making plays on the defensive end. He had a huge block in the 4th quarter. He made several threes throughout the game. Him and Amen combined for 25 points. By themselves, they outscored the entire Dallas Mavericks bench. They almost out-rebounded them. The entire Dallas Mavericks bench had 11 rebounds. They had 8 between them. When they came back in that 4th quarter, that's when the momentum started to switch back over to the Rockets. And they were a huge reason why the Rockets were able to pull that game out. Without Amen and Tari playing the way they did last night, the Rockets don't win. Like I mentioned earlier, Amen had that huge turnaround shot late in the game after Luka had made the three to cut it down to two. To cut it down to 2 or 3 points. He made that huge turnaround shot in the lane that kind of finally sealed the game for the Rockets, and give them that victory. And like I said, Amin and Tari, they have a chance to be probably the best duo off the bench. If you look at just their overall games, I mean, you have the defense from both players. You have Amin's athleticism. You have Tari, who, man, ever since his first season, I don't think a lot of people talk enough about it. In his first season, he was probably one of the Rockets' best shooters, something that nobody probably expected from him coming out of college. But he was probably one of the Rockets' top two shooters in his rookie season last year. He dealt with a lot of injuries and didn't play a lot of games. But now you're starting to see again this season, he's already definitely one of the Rockets' best shooters, and he's just going to continue to get more and more minutes because you got to remember he's coming off of a major injury last year himself, and he's just starting to get back into game shape. And now you're starting to see him get back into that rhythm that you didn't always see during the preseason, but you're starting to see it now, and it's starting to pay off huge dividends for the Rockets. So Amin and Tari all season off the bench, and I mean, not to start any controversy here, but would I be shocked if we see a change to the starting lineup at some point this season? I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't expect it anytime soon, just because um, MA likes consistency and he likes to be able to see the same rotations throughout the year. But man, if Amin and Tari keep playing this way, it's going to be hard to keep them out of that starting lineup at some point this season. But for at least for this game, they were definitely another reason why the Rockets were able to pull out the victory over the Dallas Mavericks. And the third and final reason why I believe the Rockets were able to pull out that victory is because of rebounding, and specifically offensive rebounding. Like I've talked about in articles, I've talked about in other podcasts, the Rockets were one of the best rebounding teams last year. They were a top 3 rebounding team, and now you add in a player like Steven Adams. Tari Eason is coming back from injury, and you're expecting to be one of the best rebounding teams again this year. And that's why the game against Charlotte was so disappointing, because they dominated the boards in the first half. Second half, they got dominated 33-12 on the boards, something that you absolutely haven't seen from the Rockets in the last year and a half now. So they were able to kind of flip that script again last night, and they were able to dominate the boards. They out-rebounded the Mavericks 50-37. And then really specifically the offensive boards where they really stood out. They were able to get 18 offensive boards that led to a bunch of second chance points. And that was a huge reason why the Rockets were able to pull that victory, because even though they led the entire game actually from start to finish, they weren't necessarily, they had, again, another one of their cold stretches that they tend to have throughout games. Luckily, this one didn't last as long as the one from San Antonio, where they basically couldn't make a shot for an entire quarter. But they did kind of go through a little cold spell. But this time, again, they were able to get those offensive rebounds. They have 18 offensive rebounds to only 10 for the Dallas Mavericks. Like I said, they were able to out-rebound by double digits, 50-37. And normally when any team, but specifically the Rockets, out-rebound the other team by double digits, you're usually going to be in pretty good shape as far as the overall game is concerned. The Rockets had 12 more shots than the Dallas Mavericks. And they also still were able to, even though they had 12 more shots, a lot of times you may necessarily not have more free throw attempts. Rockets still had more free throw attempts than the Mavericks as well, even though you still would like to see them shoot better than 74% from free throw line. But at the end of the day, those offensive rebounds were a big reason why the Rockets were able to get off double-digit advantage as far as free throws, and a double-digit advantage as far as overall field goal attempts. So again, that's going to be the Rockets' calling card all season, is their ability to be able to out-rebound teams, specifically on the offensive board. Because when you bring in a player like Tari Eason, and you already have a player like alperensengun in the starting lineup, and then amenthompson, who can jump over anybody in the NBA, you're going to probably be out-rebounding teams on a night-in, night-out basis. And that's not even talking about when Steven Adams is able to get up to speed and get back his playing legs. Then you're just adding one of the best offensive rebounds in the entire NBA. You should be top 3 at the very least rebounding team. And I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the season, the Rockets are the best rebounding team in the NBA. So yes, offensive rebound was a huge reason why the Rockets were able to pull out the 108-102 victory over the Dallas Mavericks last night. And let's just be honest, a win over the Dallas Mavericks always a little bit more special because it's Dallas, and we all know how people in Houston feel about Dallas. And even though a lot of times people in Dallas don't want to admit it, they don't like Houston either. Let's just be honest. So the fact that the Rockets were able to pull out that victory in Dallas against a team that they've struggled against pretty much since Luka's been in the NBA, but definitely the last 7, 8 games, definitely feels even better the day after, being able to beat NBA team, but specifically the Dallas Mavericks. So again, let me know down in the comments, what do you think about the victory? How do you think the Rockets are doing overall this season? Do you have another reason why you feel the Rockets were able to come away with the victory? And also let me know, what do you think about Jalen Green so far this season? It's been a lot of expectations on him. It's been a lot of people that didn't think that he was worth keeping around, that maybe the Rockets should have moved on from him years ago. So let me know what you think down in the comments about Jalen Green. Please like the video. Again, that helps get it out to more people. That can help the channel grow. We're over 2,700 subscribers. Definitely want to be at 3,000 by the end of the year. Definitely want to continue to bring you different content other than just podcasts. We want to continue to bring you interviews. I'll be out at the game tomorrow versus Golden State Warriors, another team that they have not beaten. Um, Honestly, I can't tell you the last time they beat the Golden State Warriors. I think they've lost probably 9, 10 games in a row to the Warriors. We should be getting an update, if I'm not mistaken, on Steph Curry, whether he's going to play tomorrow or not. So we'll get that update. But like I said, I'll be out at the game. Of course, as usual, I'll be bringing you pre and post game, all the interviews, maybe even some early Rockets getting ready for the game, like I've done in previous videos. So definitely make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And as usual, we appreciate our support, and make sure you check out the next episode of Rockets Fuel Podcast.